Hey there. Welcome to Bibliomancy with Carlos. Today, we are going to use this 100 and something sided die to help us explore a book from my library to find some quotes or something worth contemplating artistically, inspirationally, philosophically, spiritually, whatever. My goal with these videos is to have them be brief and give us something that we can reflect on for that day, the day we hear it, and forever. And today's numbers were the number 105 and the number 42. Now I have different ways of using this die depending on the size of the book. And a lot of times what I like to do is actually do two throws, and one that starts from the beginning of the book and goes up, and the other that starts from the end of the book and goes down from those two numbers. But it depends. If the book is really teeny tiny, I have other things I do. If it's very large, I might do some other things. So, but I like to do more than one, and I like to do some kind of multiplication or halving or back and forth. And I have a pretty consistent approach to how I do it. And in my universe of approach, my method for anything, oracular or divinatory or whatever you want to call this, consistency is key. For not that things can't be random and chaotic and fun and improvisational. In fact, improvisation always creeps into it as intuition and things begin to reveal themselves. But that, I just have an approach that helps deal with some of the mechanics of things, like, if a book is only 8 pages versus if it's thousands of pages, and it's a lot of fun. The two numbers today were the numbers 105 and 42, and so I began with using 105 with the book, The Development of Chinese Zen by Heinrich Dumoulin and Ruth Fuller Sasaki. Heinrich Dumoulin was a Jesuit theologian who lived between 1905 and 1995. And he published a lot on Zen Buddhism and the history of Zen, and was a really very interesting creature. In my teenage years, his books, which are still actually up on the Zen part of my shelf up there, Zen Buddhism and History, the 2 volumes I poured through in incredible detail back when I was really obsessed with Zen in my mid to late teen years. And Ruth Fuller Sasaki, reading from her Wikipedia page, was born in 1892 and lived until 1967. Ruth Fuller Sasaki was an American writer and Buddhist teacher. She was an important figure in the development of Buddhism in the United States. As Ruth Fuller Everett, during her first marriage, she met and studied with Daisetsu Teotaro Suzuki in Japan in 1930. In 1938, she became a principal supporter of the Buddhist Society of America, later known as the First Zen Institute of America. So Ruth Fuller Sasaki, another interesting person, and in fact, we can see that this book here is the First Zen Institute of America from 1953. This is a rather beautiful book. I love how it has this tipped in, it's got some tipped in images here of Inodashi, and it has some nice charts of Chinese Zen development lineages in the back. The first number that we rolled was the number 105, which brought me to a Chinese character glossary page. And at first I went, ooh, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Not easy, juicy, kind of cool quote to pull out. And as I was having that reaction, I realized that my eyes were already very much focused on Hakuin, Ikaku, and I could not take my eyes off of it. I actually found them very much residing there and my eyes being magnetized to them, and they stayed there. Hakuin Ikaku lived from 1686 to 1768 and was a Zen master who, in the Sasaki Dumoulin book that we are using today, They described him as a revivifier of Japanese koan zen. In his Wikipedia entry, they talk of him as a revivifier of Rinzai Zen. Following the Hakuin current, I reached to The Original Face, an anthology of Rinzai Zen, translated and edited by the prolific and mind-blowing Thomas Cleary, as I knew there was some good work in here by Hakuin, namely the explication of the four knowledges of Buddhahood. And so we will read from the first page of Hakuin's selection. Some ask, are the three Buddhas and four knowledges inherent? Or are they in the sphere of knowledge attained only after awakening? Are they realized all at once? Or are they cultivated gradually? The answer is that, although these are fundamentally complete in everyone, unless brought to light, they cannot be realized. Here, we're seeing a reference to the intrinsic nature of things versus something that we slowly attain from somewhere. When the student has accumulated effort in study and investigation, and the enlightened nature suddenly appears, all at once, he realizes the essence of inner reality. All at once, he realizes the essence of inner reality. When one is actualized, all are actualized. But though one reaches the stage of Buddhahood without passing through steps and stages, if one doesn't cultivate practice gradually, it is impossible to fulfill omniscience, independent knowledge, and ultimate great enlightenment. And here we see, one of the classical reconciliations between the notion of gradual linearity and steps by which one attains Buddhahood, attains enlightenment, in the sense that we might, take one step after another to get to the corner grocery store. And it's only after a linear set of steps and stages that we attain it or get to it, as well as the whole issue of attainment. When one walks to the store, one isn't already at the store. When it comes to Buddha nature, if it's intrinsic, one already has it. So the effort to reach out and grab it is to some degree absurd because it's like a hand trying to grasp itself. But here we see that still, well, then what of the need for discipline? What of the need for practice, which does take place, experienced in time? And going from one state to another, from a lesser to a greater state, or a more delusional versus more enlightened state, is experienced as a linear sequence in time. And so the relationship between practice and time is so intrinsic to human experience that we couple, in essence, the essence and the outcome with time versus necessary steps that we must take in order to actualize something that's inherent. So here we see still the defense of practice. I repeat, but though one reaches the stage of Buddhahood without passing through steps and stages, if one doesn't cultivate practice gradually, it is impossible to fulfill omniscience, independent knowledge, and ultimate great enlightenment. What does realization at once mean? When the discriminating mind is suddenly shattered, and the enlightened essence suddenly appears, the fulfilling of the universe with its boundless light is called the great perfect mirror knowledge, the pure body of reality. This is the transmuted eighth storehouse consciousness. That all things in the six fields of sense, seeing, hearing, discernment, and knowing are your own enlightened nature is called the knowledge of equality, the fulfilled body of reward. I repeat, that all things in the six fields of sense, seeing, hearing, discernment, and knowledge are your own enlightened nature is called the knowledge of equality, the fulfilled body of reward. That's fucking hot. Discerning the principles of things by the light of true knowledge is called the subtle analytic knowledge. This is the body of reward and also includes the transformation body. Now, at the beginning of that text, Hakuin references the three bodies, and the three bodies are an incredible thing in Buddhism to focus on. And for me personally, as someone who uses the body very much as a vehicle of knowledge, not just in the sense of the brain and the rational mind and ego that we associate so often to what is knowing and the knowing being. There's a lot in my career that I've done that relates to using methods to ask our questions, questions of our body that our bodies answer. And for that, I've drawn from like Hijikata's Butofu and Qigong and all sorts of different things for doing that. But anyway, it's very interesting in the space of thinking of the body differently and embodiment differently, especially given the intrinsic nature of the Buddha nature of enlightenment. I'm going to paraphrase Dogen here, and it's been a while since I've spent a lot of time with Dogen, so hopefully I'm not misrepresenting him. I mean, these are takeaways that have been with me for decades. But my understanding from Dogen was that enlightenment and delusion on the experiential level, the phenomenological level, the existential level, how we actually experience it, the epistemological level, the way we understand it, the knowledge aspect, whatever. They exist in the world much like winter, spring, summer, fall. They're distinct and they're different, but we can't always say at what point spring becomes what comes after spring, summer, summer becomes fall, etc. But they're different, and they all exist, and they exist at different times. But there's also a cyclical nature. There again, humans get very caught in this linear thing where it's like, I'm going to start this path, I'm going to get to an end, and that's it. Everything's going to be great once I fucking achieve whatever thing. I'm going to be happy once I have, the McMansion and the boat and whatever, right? Blah, blah, blah. We're ridiculous. So to realize that, to go from that to realizing that, in fact, the Buddha nature is intrinsic, and really it's more a matter of activating it. And the paraphrase that I remember from Dogen, which has stuck with me for a very long time, is that, and again, hopefully it's accurate, I have to double check this, but is that the way that I understood it is one doesn't meditate in order to become enlightened. Meditation is the activity of the enlightened being. What I just said is one of the among the best ideas and concepts that exist. It's so powerful and so jujitsu flipping, judo flipping, tossing of the way human mind works by default, especially around these matters, where one has to go on this linear path to get something. And a lot of people like to insert themselves along that path to say the only way you can get to the other side of this path is through me, so give me your money or whatever, right? It's definitely that linear thing is something that really definitely favors hierarchy and toll gates and stuff like that. But the notion of intrinsic enlightenment flips that. You're already that. So where we look for it isn't so much in the attained state of being that's gotten somewhere. Where we look for it is mobilized in action, in embodiment, which is a really big deal for people to take that on and to sit with that. Not only to sit with it, but to act through it, and to act through it for years on end. to go from, oh, I'm just this miserable creature who has to spend 55,000 hours and more lifetimes than there are grains of sand in the Ganges, which is what Shakyamuni had to do in order to become enlightenment. So I'm just this puny little thing. How many grains of sand have I lived, and what do I have to do? And oh my God, it's so blah, 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 right? And maybe it does take that many lifetimes. I'm not saying it doesn't. But you may have already exhausted a lot of those grains of sand. You may already be there. What's standing in your way is how you think about shit. It's this limitation that keeps you perpetually from what you already are, which might be a delusion that you can flip just like flipping a switch. So when you flip that switch, you go from this world of self-doubt in which you're something that's possibly your entitled intrinsic nature is something alien to you. What you're doing is you're turning off that alienation in an instant. You're given the middle finger, to alienation, and you're removing that obstacle. And you're embracing what you already are. But it's not just an idea. It's not just, oh, I had the idea in my rational mind. Now I'm going to metastasize that to my ego and spiritualize my ego. You got to act. And, well, we can get at some point in the future in the relationship between action and the ego. Let's just, for now, say it's not an egotistical thing. It's doing. It's action. It's real in a different way than the ego is. So if, and meditation is the activity of the enlightened being versus one meditates in order to become enlightened, that's a very different worldview. Even if, it does, again, experienced in time, it takes time to meditate in order to get to before and after states, from and to states in terms of levels or manifestations of delusion. But here we come back to, the point that's on this thing we read from Hakuin, that once it's turned on, once it's realized and activated, it's all activated at once. It's all right there, and it's always been right there. So, well, I'm not going to take a ton of time on this one to, get into all this embodiment, but, he refers to, the three bodies, which I encourage you to study and reflect on and do stuff with. Again, coming from this root of understanding the intrinsic nature of enlightenment and the fact that it's something that you can do. And, I love this, like when Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh would talk about before and after he became enlightened. And this would, of course, this pisses off a lot of people who are like, oh man, this guy, how can he have the audacity to claim he's enlightened? Well, I kind of liked it. I liked that audacity because, and here's a useful use of the ego in this way, to overcome the self-doubt. Because, well, I could just flip that and say, well, who are you to think that he couldn't be and that you can't be and that you aren't already are? Now, this isn't the shortcut of, again, just staying in the metastasized ego and rational mind that got the concept and then egotized this notion of being enlightened. Hey, baby, I'm so enlightened because I got this idea. Now let me tell you this idea, and clearly I know this because I'm so smart I can put these words together. No, there's work involved. There's doing, and which precisely means embodiment. Okay, there's a reason why the word body and action and other forms of knowing that aren't always owned by the rational mind and quickly metastasize to the ego often have strong affinity to the word body. And so, in the three bodies, we have the Dharmakaya, the Dharma body, and I'm reading just from Wikipedia right now just to grab something quick. It's a good place to start. Dharmakaya, the Dharma body, ultimate reality, pure being itself, Buddha nature, emptiness, akin to Nirguna Brahman, and is usually associated with the Vairocana. Now, that's a deep and vast concept, especially because we can see things like ultimate reality as well as emptiness associated to it, and getting into, like Nagarjuna and the middle way and all Madhyamika and all this stuff with emptiness. That topic gets big fast and it's beautiful. I'm not going to focus on that right now, or really go that deep on any of this, but I just want to cue these up because this is an area well worth investigating. Again, especially from the notion that when we act, we're already there, and we're operating and maturing from a space of already there-ness versus a trying to attain an impossible thing from which we are alienated, which is also a dynamic that has very potent connections in the world of Christianity with regard to the embodied or non-embodied Christ, and Reformation and counter-Reformation repression of the imaginal and the hypnotic and imagery and that second commandment idolatry thing that always tends to come up, especially conveniently when assholes want to repress people. The second commandment and a kind of a fascistic sort of, well, I don't want to say that, but like a stripping down of people to nothingness and control of them, like anti-rave laws and you can't imagine this and stop touching yourself. And, again, notwithstanding like the Protestant, oh, we're gonna, create a vernacular Bible or whatever, but nonetheless, you still got to go through people to get there, and so we're gonna disempower you in other ways by not letting you, imagine ecstatic stuff, and we're gonna Taliban like strip the, imagery off the church walls and all that stuff. Different topic, but not unrelated. Anyway, the Sambhoga Kaya, enjoyment or bliss body, the divine Buddhas of the Buddha realms, akin to Saguna Brahman, and is usually associated with Amitabha. So that's the enjoyment or bliss body. Good stuff to focus on there. Who doesn't like joy and bliss? Take that, anti-joy and bliss people. Okay, the Nirmanakaya, and here we go. The transformation or appearance body, the physical appearance in the world, and is usually associated with Gautama Buddha, the famous one that there are so many statues for, especially famous one. Now, here's the Nirmanakaya. So one of the early, I'm reading again from a Wikipedia entry about this, and it's cool. Nirmanakaya, if I was like doing this more as a methodical lecture, I'd be pulling from all kinds of sources, but whatever. We're just doing something for fun here, right? This is, again, bibliomancy with Carlos. It's already gone on way long. I thought this was going to be like a 3-minute thing. It's going to be 30. Nirmanakaya is the third aspect of the Trikaya and the physical manifestation of the Buddha in space and time. In Vajrayana, it is described as the dimension of ceaseless manifestation. Now, I love this stuff here with the mind-made body. So, one of the early Buddhist texts in Pali, the Samannaphala Sutta, lists the ability to create a, quote, mind-made body, Manomayakaya. I'm sure I'm butchering the Sanskrit or the Pali, but it's the best I can do. The mind-made body as one of the fruits of contemplative life. Commentarial texts such as the Patisambhidamagga and the Visuddhimagga state that this mind-made body is how Gautama Buddha and Arhats are able to travel into heavenly realms using the continuum of the mind stream, the Chitta Samthana. And it is also used to explain the multiplication miracle of the Buddha as illustrated in the Divyavadana, in which the Buddha multiplied his nirmita, or emanated form, into countless other bodies which filled the sky. A Buddha or other realized being is able to project many such nirmitas simultaneously in an infinite variety of forms in different realms simultaneously. So that's a lot to sit with. And what I originally thought was going to be like a 3-minute thing has turned into a lot more. And I meant to do a few other things with that die. As we pulled up page 105 and 42, There are some different things I wanted to do going back and forth in that original text, but this has gone on long enough. That's all you get uh, today from Bibliomancy with Carlos. I hope to make a lot of these. Let me set some intentions here and communicate those. You know, I have this amazing treasure trove of books, and I read a lot. And but there's a lot of books that are sitting here collecting dust. And I also like people, and I like connection, and I like sharing thoughts and ideas and wisdom. And so this is going to help me bring all that together. It's going to help me bring some flowing energy to parts of these bookshelves that have just been collecting dust for years. I mean, I haven't talked about, you know, Duomoulin for eons, and it's so great to talk about him and share him with you. Um, his works on the history of Buddhism were incredibly enriching for me back, when I was in my teeny bopper years. And it's nice to pay honor to this ancestor in this way, and to blow some dust off the books and be not just sitting like a dragon on a pile of gold, sleeping on this pile of gold. We got to keep these things in circulation. And support to keep everything in circulation, to keep moving, to keep the energy flowing through things. And accumulation is incredible. Building archives is incredible. Building museums is incredible. Accretion is a beautiful thing, but that accretion must be activated and the flow must happen. Much like the intrinsic nature of enlightenment, it's not much good if you don't do something with it. It's as if it didn't exist. So, until next time, this is Carlos Abler signing off from episode 1 of Bibliomancy with Carlos.